Hi, everyone. Welcome to AI for UX. This is the space where UX researchers and product leaders stay current with AI innovations. So I'm John Whalen, and I'm the founder of Brilliant Experience, and we're a psychology-driven product innovation firm. And so I myself have struggled a lot to keep up with all these new AI tools for UX research, and I'm guessing I'm not alone, and that's why I started this series. In each installment, we speak to the founder of one of the latest AI-enhanced research tools and dive deep into the inspiration for it, how it might benefit you, and where we think this industry is headed overall. And just a quick note, these videos aren't product endorsements. Brilliant always pays full price for any technologies we use, and no one's getting paid. The purpose is simply to learn more about new technologies together. So with that, let's get started. So I would like to welcome Aaron. So Aaron Cannon is the CEO and co-founder of Outset.ai, and it's a tool that conducts and synthesizes video, audio, and text conversations with hundreds of participants at once, which is remarkable. So thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview and talking to us. We're delighted to have you here.
Thank you for having me. This is great.
Sure. Well, let's dive right into Outset and learn a little more. So who do you feel really is the sort of core audience for your product, and kind of what pain points does it address?
Yeah, well, it's great to be here. Thank you for doing this series.
Sure.
I think there's a lot happening in the world of UX and research, and it's awesome to be a part of helping everyone keep up. So Outset, as you mentioned, is a tool for gathering qualitative research, qualitative conversations at scale by using AI. So I can go, yeah, I think we'll go more into the actual kind of functionality. But who's it for? Today we are really focused on the researchers. So focused on kind of core research teams that spread across market research and user research to help them, give them a new way to gather qualitative data, deep, rich, kind of conversational data
Mm-hmm.
at the speed and scale of a survey, right? And so it's kind of giving them a
Mm-hmm.
new method. And that's really, um, who we're working with and who we're targeting. You asked the question about pain points. In
Yeah.
my own experience, I started my career in the consulting world. I was doing innovation and design thinking consulting for a number of years at a firm called Doblin, which was acquired by Deloitte. And then I've spent the last 10 years, leading product and design teams here in Silicon Valley. And throughout all of them, I've always felt this kind of frustration that whenever we're picking the tools, picking the methods to go answer a research question, there's a trade-off that is frustrating, right? You're either going to get breadth or you're going to get depth. So either you're going to
Mm-hmm.
go for, you
Yeah.
know, quant surveys, which go broad but not deep, or you're going to go for qual, which is going to get really deep and incredible, but not broad and not the speed, right? And so that's
Mm-hmm.
really the problem that is kind of been an intractable one for the industry, and we wanted to go solve it.
Got it. And so, since this is called AI for UX, can you explain how AI is integrated into your tool?
Yeah, absolutely. So we were founded around AI being the kind of, the why now, right? Whenever you're raising money from investors, one of the first questions they ask is why now? Why is this a moment that something should change, that behavior should change, that budget should shift? And the answer is certainly, especially in the last 2 years, is that large language models have kind of opened up a whole set of opportunity and use cases. And in our case, as we looked at research, the real opportunity that we initially saw was that AI, or large language models under the hood, are incredibly effective question askers. We all think of AI as this thing that answers your questions, right? Chat GPT or
Mm-hmm.
kind of
Yeah.
the Bing, et cetera. But in fact, it's quite good at asking them. So for us, we give you a tool set where you can basically deploy AI to conduct conversations with participants. And so AI is leading the conversation, dynamically following up, probing super deep in the right areas, um, and ultimately giving you that qualitative experience. And then at the end of a study, we also then use large language models to help you synthesize that data into something actionable.
Got it. No, I find that scale really interesting, and I myself think about like how would I design a study right when I've got this capability to, instead of test 50
Yeah.
or 90 or even 120 people like we've done in the past, hundreds and across many languages. So how should I think about working with a tool like yours?
Yeah. I mean, I get this question often because I think it is often the case that in the world of, qualitative research, we've been in a position of defending small sample sizes, right,
Mhm.
for many, many years. And there's real truth to that. There are a lot of use cases where, you know what, like, all I need to do is see how 4 or 5 people engage with the onboarding flow to find out all the ways I've messed up in the usability, right? So that can be very real. But there are so many times where scale and speed really matter. Maybe you want to understand how how 5 different segments of your user base behave differently, or how people in 3 markets across 3 languages react to your new design or new comms plan or new marketing push. And I think
Mhm.
we have been forcing ourselves to small sample sizes out of necessity. And so this is where, we find our customers are deploying AI moderated research to sometimes, get a broad scale at a certain depth. Sometimes it's to augment, the qualitative interviews you're already doing. Sometimes it's actually in place of a survey. Because how often do we do kind of quote unquote qualitative surveys, right? Where we're just
Mhm.
trying to get speed and scale, but we also want to kind of know the depth, kind of get the real why, and we're just doing the best we can with the tools we have. And so we see kind of
Mhm.
it deployed in a number of ways as another tool in the toolkit.
Hmm. So, actually, to help just push this a little bit, because I do think your tool allows us to think differently. So, is there? I'm starting to. Someone mentioned a qualivay, a qualitative survey, and how do I don't know. Do you have a take, or do you find your clients have a balance that they've drawn that is sort of optimal so far?
So, I mean, over the long term, I'll give you just my kind of thoughts more
Of course.
broadly. Like, m- a huge percentage of the time that we all use surveys is really just because that's the only way we can get that volume at that speed. Right? And so it's a blunt instrument. It's not actually a precise one. It's not one that gives us the best that we can get. And so I absolutely think a huge percentage of the surveys that we run today should actually have either entirely or somewhat incorporated AI moderation.
Hmm.
Because again, surveys are all about automation, right? You can do this with hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of people at once.
Hmm.
Why not have some dynamic conversation to understand the why behind someone's answer? And so I think that's, over the long term, that's where I think this is going. There are
Hmm.
some use cases, right? Very quanti kind of stat sig types of use cases where you want a kind of very, very structured survey. But for many use cases, it may, probably most, right? There's at least some element where you want to understand a why. So anywhere you want a why, this is a place to use AI. Now, I think, to your direct question, our customers have kind of each come to their own balance based on their own kind of proclivity for depth. How do they, how does kind of verbatim, interesting, thoughtful verbatims, how much of a currency is that internally,
Hmm.
right? Or
Yeah.
how much does volume matter? Or so I think there are a lot of variables, but ultimately, I think if you want depth and you want scale, it's almost a no-brainer to use AI instead of the traditional methods.
Hmm. Really interesting. Thank you. And
Yeah.
well, I think we've talked around your product enough that I was like, maybe now's a great time to just show people a little bit of what you're thinking of and how it works. So let me see if we can share your screen, if that sounds good to you.
Yeah. All right, so I'll give a quick kind of what I'm going to show you first, real quick, is the participant experience. And this is an interview with someone. So in this case, you're probably seeing 2 videos of me, or it's a little confusing to see my own video here. But in this case, I'm the participant, right? And so what's happening here is I'm taking an AI interview. So AI is saying, "Hey, thanks for participating. We'll be sharing a new snack concept we're considering." So this is, in this case, the study is about testing a snack concept and learning a little bit about the people that we're testing it with. So I as the participant, I'm going to go ahead and click to record. I'm ready to get started and send that. And what's happening in the background is that we're taking that audio, we're then processing it, turning it into text, sending it to the kind of the AI model.
Mm.
The AI model brings back the response and gives you the next question. So in this
Cool.
case, let's get started with your personal wellness habits. Um, and then I'll go ahead and do one more if that's all right here. Um, I just want to get in better shape. So I'm telling it, okay, I have a short answer. I just want to get in better shape. And AI is going to take that and dynamically respond. So here, that's a great goal. Share more about what getting in better shape means to you, right? And so really what you're getting here is like this deeper and deeper dig, which as
Mm.
if you've
Mhm.
ever done qualitative research, you know it's after the second, third, or fourth probe that you really get the magic, right? And the other
Mm.
piece that I wanted to mention is here you can see I can open up the concept card that we're going to be testing here. And so that's another kind of component here is that you can test, stimulus. And so I think this is really kind of demonstrates why it is both a automated, large scale, fast moving kind of tool, but it's also something where you can get quite deep with participants. And then on the other end of things, we the researchers can actually get all of these video clips. And some places are all about the numbers, which is great, and we help you get quant, and AI moderated can do that too. But some places are all about the kind of little amazing verbatims, the way somebody said something. And so that's why our latest product here is video, right? So it's capturing my video as the participant so the researchers can really use that in telling the
Mm.
story and
Mhm.
extracting the kind of deeper thought here. So I'll
Yeah.
probably stop there. Yeah, that's
Sure.
probably a good place to stop.
No, it's really interesting. So I, as the researcher, would get both a summary of it from your system as well as the transcripts. And if I remember right, just to be specific, you could, for example, I don't know, I know a little bit of French, so you could do this in French, and I would get back a transcript in English. Am I correct?
That's
As
right.
apology.
That's right, and
Okay.
that's something I didn't actually mention at the top, but basically, you can select any language that you want, and we support I think it's about the top 50, kind of most, used
Hmm.
languages in the world, and you can just build your guide in English, choose your language, and the whole thing will be conducted that whole interview will be conducted in, whatever language you've chosen, which is just a quick point on that, and I didn't start with that, but that is a huge, huge reason that
Hmm.
customers use us, is that we think about, when we go out to do international research, across market or across kind of multicultural
Yeah.
research, you find it is so, such a painful process to do translation for qual that, it's almost people just don't do it a lot of the time
Mhm.
because it's so difficult. And so this, I think, one under-discussed power of large language models is that they abstract away the actual language. They know what you mean
Hmm.
when you write a question in the guide, and then they can put that into whatever language it's already trained on. And so I think that's a really powerful component of AI right now.
Yeah. Well, very cool. And well, thank you so much for showing me, getting a feel for what that's like.
There's
Uh,
actually one, not to jump in
oh
here,
yeah,
I wanted to
sure,
mention one other
please.
piece. So, you mentioned kind of, at the end of a study, right? Maybe you've just run a study with 200 people to understand their feedback about a concept. Not only do you get the video clips and the summaries, but we also then use AI to synthesize the report for you. So you actually get the numbers. How many people did this concept resonate? What
Mm,
were the key themes about why it resonated? And so a big belief of mine is that if you're
mm,
going to enable people to go broad, you also have to help them come back in to a
yeah.
you know to a set of actionable inputs or actionable kind of takeaways rather than just a giant stack of transcripts.
Mhm. Well, fair. And I guess I'm so used to the stack of transcripts that I can hardly fathom it doing it for me. Very cool. Well, actually, let me sort of take a big step back. You came from, and like Dublin's well known, and at least it was, great in its day. I know it's part of other things now, but I guess I did want to ask you, so you come a long way to be the person providing the product from the person who might be the consumer of it. What inspired you to do this and for this field?
I mean, I think there's like the very personal answer, and then there's the kind of like more rational answer. I think personally, I've worked at startups. I've kind of been in the startup ecosystem for the last decade, and I've just seen all parts of it, and something absolutely inside of me wanted to go start something, to actually build something from the ground up. And that 0 to 1, that true 0 to 1, I've been there at a 10-person company growing to Series C, but that's still 1 to N, right? And that 0 to 1 is just something I've cared a lot about, and I've wanted to do, and finally found the opportunity to do it. And I was on pat leave with our son,
Hmm.
when I had enough time to think to myself, I was like, you know what, screw it, I'm just gonna go do it. And that really, like, something about the
Hmm.
wanting to feel empowered enough to go have an impact and go do something that,
Yeah.
to build something as you see it for the world. And I think that's been very passionate, close to me. I think in a um, more kind of practical way, I think this is research is just this thing that has undergirded anything I've worked on, anything I've built, and anything we all build really is to understand humans. And I think it's a somewhat counterintuitive thing to say, like, how can we mold AI to better understand each other, better understand humanity? And like, that's very inspiring to me. And it's
Yeah.
like, how do we use AI to actually bring us closer, bring our products and our services closer to people? So I think that,
Hmm.
combined with just, a decade or more of frustration of the tools that we have, that, I figured I'd go make my own.
Nice. Well, we appreciate that you've done this and gotten this far. Along the way, I guess I just wondered if there were things that were, major milestones or achievements along the way that you're like, particularly proud of that, the thing managed to do X successfully.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of moments that I think we felt really excited by, that have motivated us. I think one was way back. I mean, this is kind of, as you think about, like, when you start a company, you have no idea whether the thing makes any sense to anybody but yourself. And I remember the moment we convinced the awesome folks at Weight Watchers to give us a try. Right, it was a free pilot, which was a thing. Sometimes when you're just right out of the gate, you got to do. And got in front of
Yeah.
it. And I remember getting a call saying, "This is this is actually valuable." Right? Like, we would like to pay you money for this thing. Like, you have a thing, we'd like to pay you money for it. And it was just such a mind-blowing moment. And that there was no video, no audio, it was just text, there was no stimulus. I mean, it was like a really hacky version of our product, but this was about a year ago. And I think that that moment felt like such an incredible achievement because we said, okay, we're on to something now. Right? Now we
Hmm.
can,
Yeah.
start really investing more. So I think that was a big moment. That I'd probably call out. And I think another one is I would say for us, the launch of video was a really big moment
Hmm.
because it was kind
Yeah.
of a natural progression from text to voice to video. And that, uh, that video just speaks so much louder in understanding people, right? It's just this kind of multimodal experience that you can actually capture the essence of what somebody's saying. That,
Yeah.
like, getting there felt like a kind of, we were on a road and got to the right point there.
Well, actually, I meant to ask you this earlier, being a psychologist in my background. Are you using elements of the video to, there are tools like emotive or facial recognition things and so on. And I just didn't know if those are things that actually can be used today or not.
So we are not yet using any sort of
Hmm.
kind of video sentiment analysis or video tracking, face tracking. Those things are, we're absolutely in, like, the R&D mode of that.
Hmm.
We will obviously want to, uh, right now, our kind of reporting is all about the content of what they say, and then the
Hmm.
actual quotes is like you get the 3D kind of the full version. We Yeah, so we'll be working on that for sure.
Yeah. Well, this leads really to my next question, which is just, I had a question written that says, where do you see your product in the next few years? And I don't think anyone knows. So, but where do you see it? Maybe you do. But how are there natural evolutions that you're seeing, or that are in the books that we should know about, or things that you're interested in pursuing?
Yeah, it's a there's so much there. Yeah, you're right. If you look out several years, I'm like, everything. I want to have built everything, right? So that's a but as we look out, let's just say towards the kind of next 6 months or so, I think, we today are working with folks, with titles like market research, consumer insights, user research, and it's across them because ultimately, while the budgets and teams might be different, the methods are often very overlapping, and we
Hmm.
all need
Yeah.
qualitative understanding, right? And so as we do that, we're looking at all of the different kind of the reason we use each method, whether it's focus groups or in-depth interviews or, usability tests. As we look at our methodology, we're taking a lens to how does AI create either incredible depth on top of this kind of research or incredible scale, where it wasn't possible, or unlock something completely different. And so, for example, we're looking at
Mm-hmm.
things like usability, allowing people to share their screens and go through
Mm-hmm.
prototypes and integrate with design tools. We're also looking at
Mm-hmm.
focus groups. Imagine if you could have a person come in and have actually synthetic, other members of the focus group, and you have an entirely controlled focus group where you can test, peer interactions. And so
Hmm.
there's a lot that can be done
Yeah.
here. As you bring AI into it. And so I think that's kind of the breadth of research practices and methods is kind of one area I'm really excited about. And the other is just going deeper in how you get in a single conversation, get the most possible depth. So whether that's voice and sentiment and video
Mm-hmm.
sentiment, we've launched a voice to voice mode as well, where you're actually just chatting with AI, right? There's no
Mm-hmm.
text on the screen. It's just you and AI,
Yeah.
and continuing down that path of just pure depth. How do we recreate a lot of the magic of interviews?
Actually, I did mean to ask you too, and I apologize for not doing this sooner. Uh, someone like myself, if I'm busy moderating, logically I could say, "So, do you like bicycles?" And I want to, you to want them or whatever. There can be all sorts of biases from the humans, and the reverse. Someone might say, "I don't want to say that your product's ugly in front of you." Do you feel like there were? I'm sure you've kind of studied, the responses you get from just a normal interview versus a synthesized moderator. What have you learned about that?
Yeah, I'll say up front, we have not run like an academic level study to kind of be a perfect side by side on this, and so I'm excited to do that. We're working with some academic partners at the moment to continue down that path. But I will say we have been incredibly impressed, and our customers have found that, like, when they're asked with AI kind of as the moderator, we see a lot of very personal stories shared and very kind of honest things mentioned. And so, just by observation, compared to other methods, compared to interviewing, certainly compared to surveys, seeing people kind of have uninhibited sharing, right, where it's they
Mm-hmm.
are not feeling pushed or judged or like they have to say a certain thing. And even more so, we actually ran a recent study using Outset to kind of
Mm,
better, deeper understand the participant experience. What is helpful? What is advantageous? What is
right.
difficult? What kind of challenges?
Mm-hmm.
And we actually recently published that study. It's
Yeah.
on our site in the blog if you're curious. And we found not only did I think it was about 95% of people preferred this to a survey, preferred AI moderated interviews to a survey, but also found just in the qualitative responses that there was a lot of discussion of I don't feel judged. I don't feel like I need to answer a certain way. I don't feel pushed in any direction, and there's kind of a lack of inhibition. And the last thing I'll mention
Mm,
on that was just there was even when asked about what are the drawbacks, two different people said basically one drawback is I don't know if I'm on the right track when I'm talking to AI because there's no human there to get that sense
mm,
if I'm on the right track. I thought to myself, I don't know if I want my participants to know
right.
whether they're on the right track. Isn't the point to see what
Mm-hmm.
track they take? So ultimately, I think that's a big advantage of removing yourself from the picture. But again, there's always a balance, right? And I think some
Mm,
projects require that kind of sensitivity. Some projects maybe don't, and so you maybe
yeah.
have various ways of deploying these tools.
Well, and this leads to, is there a job for me coming up? So, just really thinking on the bigger picture, how will our role as researchers evolve? I think that I've been trying to think about this a lot, but I'm really interested in your perspective.
Yeah. Well, I'm also curious to hear your perspective, but I found I think the most resonant kind of statement is, and I think this quote was attributed to McKinsey for some report they did a while back, but it's AI does tasks, not jobs, right? Which is to say, an actual job, or many jobs, as we think of them as particularly a researcher's, is a complex set of tasks, right? It's tasks like moderating, it's tasks like synthesizing, it's tasks like you know um, telling the story, framing the right questions, managing stakeholders, understanding business needs, and aligning it to the research design, and that it's actually a very mixed set of tasks that we do. And I think AI, as we look out even 5 years, right? I think AI plays a huge role
Hmm.
in taking some of those tasks and accelerating them, expanding them, making them more efficient, and ultimately allowing humans who are connecting these dots and kind of, are uh, bring them together in what we think of as a job, right? To
Hmm.
do it more powerfully at more scale, more with more speed, with more accuracy. And I think that's really where I think I see this with researchers for the next 5 years. I don't, it's to have
Yeah.
anybody project more than 5 years out is hard. um, I do want to say, like, I do think research, the job is changing, right? I think
Hmm.
as new tools get introduced, I mean, imagine if you were a market researcher before the internet, in 1995 and then in 2005, right? I mean, you went from direct mail, who was it, JD Power sending direct mail with $1 in the envelope saying, please fill out the survey, to this thing where you could send a link to, thousands of people. And so it just changes
Hmm.
that changed the job of a quant, a quantitative market researcher or
Yeah.
analyst. And so I think in this way, I think we should start thinking about qualitative data a little bit differently.
Thank you. No, I think it's really interesting, and I would love to keep talking to you, and I have to let it go at this moment. But Aaron, thank you so much, and I really appreciate your thoughtfulness. It's clear, your passion for this just on its own as a principle, and second, probably the heart that you put into Outset. So very cool. If people want to give this a try or they want to get involved, are there ways that one can do that right now?
Definitely. So luckily in our name is also the domain. So if you go to outset.ai, there's a try it now little field where you can kind of go in and try an interview as a participant. You can also book a demo with us, and that usually comes straight to me. And so I would love to talk to you and get to know what kinds of research you do, and see if there's something we can work together on. So yeah.
Nice. Okay, well, I just want to thank you so much, and I really appreciate hearing it. I find it really energizing, actually, to hear your vision and the way you see this going, and yeah, it's going to keep us all on our toes to think of how our roles are evolving as strategists and researchers and so on. Well, good. Well, let me just finish up. So first of all, thank you so much, Aaron, and for sharing Outset with us. And that's all for today. And thank you very much for tuning in and keeping up with the latest on AI for UX and product research. So subscribe if you enjoyed this, and let us know in the comments what you'd like to see us feature next. And wishing you brilliant insights with AI.